What you're seeing right now is the first trailer of the very first season of Game of Thrones. As usual goes, all the footage we see in trailers we get to see sooner or later when the show airs. However, one particular scene from this trailer was left behind in the final release. The scene in question is a flashback depicting the execution of Ned Stark's father and older brother, Rickard the Brain Stark, by the Mad King Aerys. The scene features Rickard being cooked alive inside his own armor, while his son Brandon had a noose tied around his neck, strangling himself to death trying to reach a sword that was placed beyond his grip. The execution of these two men is what set off Robert's rebellion. It's a ruthless sequence for sure, and no doubt would it be tough to watch, but it hasn't aired on the series to date. With Game of Thrones coming to its end, it only makes sense for the scene to finally air. Now, some of you might say that since the scene did not air in the first season, there's no need for it to air in the final season as well. And I would agree with you if the scene was not a flashback that can be included in any season whatsoever, which is exactly what this scene is. With that being said, let's take a deep look into the unaired scene that we will most likely see in the final season. As I already said, it's about Lord Rickard and Bran Stark being put to death on orders of the Mad King. But let's get a bit back. It all started when the heir to the Iron Throne, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, for an unknown reason, abducted Lyanna Stark, the daughter of Rickard Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, and hid her away in Dorne. Later in the series, we learned that Lyanna was not kidnapped by Rhaegar, she loved him and he loved her. But that's what we, the audience, know, not the people of the Seven Kingdoms except for Bran and Sam. This event was extremely scandalous, as Lyanna was betrothed to Lord Robert Baratheon, the Lord Paramount of the Stormlands, and Rhaegar was already married to Princess Celia Martell, with whom he already had 2 children. After Lyanna's abduction, her and Ned's older brother Brandon was enraged and wrote to King's Landing demanding release of his sister and the death of Rhaegar. Heirs arrested him for treason and called for his father to come to the capital to ransom him. When Lord Rickard complied, Aerys, now utterly mad, arrested him for treason as well. Lord Rickard demanded a trial by combat, and Aerys declared fire the champion of the House Targaryen. The Mad King had Rickard burned with the pyromancer lighting a fire beneath him, while Rickard was dressed in his armor. As he burned, Brandon was brought into the throne room. A leather cord attached to a strangulation device was wrapped around his neck. As Brandon was made to watch his father die, Aerys told Brandon his father was a dead man, but there was a chance to save him. A long sword was placed on the floor just out of Brandon's reach, and the more he struggled to reach it, the more the cord tightened around his throat. Brandon strangled himself trying to save his father, who was roasted alive in his own armor. The entire court stood and watched this atrocity taking place, with Sir Jaime Lannister and the Kingsguard among them. The horrific and unjust way in which Rickard and Brandon were killed, along with Lyanna's abduction, led to House Baratheon, Stark and Arryn rebelling against the Iron Throne. Their deaths left Eddard to inherit Rickard's responsibilities, becoming the new Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. Brandon had been betrothed to Catelyn Tully, and Ned also inherited his brother's bride. House Tully soon after joined the rebellion after the marriages of Ned to Catelyn and Jon Arryn to Lysa Tully. House Lannister joined very late when it became obvious that the rebels would win. In short, this event is what changed Westeros, and one of the main events that led to Robert's rebellion, which resulted in an end of the Targaryen dynasty. It's a very important event to say the least. George R. R. Martin stated that even though they are currently working on Game of Thrones prequels, the Robert's Rebellion is most definitely not one of them. George explained that by the time Song of Ice and Fire and by the time Game of Thrones show is over, we'll know everything and will witness every important event that occurred during this time period. He finished by saying it would feel too much like a twice-told tale. This pretty much confirms that we'll get a few flashbacks that will summarize all the important events that triggered the Robert's Rebellion, as well as the events that happened during the rebellion. Long story short, we'll most likely get to finally see this flashback in the final season. A campaign to overthrow the Targaryens began when the Mad King killed Ned Stark's father and brother, but it might not be entirely the Mad King's fault. According to a very popular theory, the reason why Aerys kept repeating the phrase "burn them all" is because Bran traveled back and tried to warn him about the approaching White Walkers, telling him to burn the army of the dead before they become too strong. Instead, whispers only heightened the Mad King's already uncontrollable paranoia, leading him to kill the Starks and start the cycle of warfare that still continues in Westeros. In Season 6, Episode 3, Bran realizes that others can hear him during his visions of the past. In the final season, Bran doesn't see a way to defeat the Night King, so he attempts to reason with King Aerys and tries to warn him of the approaching army of the dead, whispering to him to burn them all before it's too late. The king hears those whispers and is driven mad by it. The Mad King burns Bran's grandfather alive and kills Bran's uncle, while Bran tries to stop him, but all he hears is whispers. Bran sets the events that occurred just before the show in motion, just as he started events in the show after walking in on Cersei and Jaime. That's the theory in which Bran would not change the past. He would only realize it's him and his whispers that driven Aerys Targaryen into the madness, and it's him who caused the deaths of his uncle and grandfather, similar as to what happened with Hodor. In Season 6, Episode 5, Bran warged into a young Willis, resulting with Bran warging into present-day Hodor as well. Hodor, under Bran's control, helped Bran and Mira in their escape out of the cave. Mira, desperate and scared, screams hold the door. Still in the vision of the past of Winterfell, Bran sees young Willis collapse after his mind returns to his body. Young Hodor keeps screaming hold the door repeatedly until it slurs into Hodor. Basically, Bran's possession of Willis in his vision of the past broke young Willis's mind, and he hears the echoes of Mira's screams, which made his mind simple and only capable of repeating a form of the last words he heard before his death, Hodor. Hodor was always Hodor for as long as Bran knew him. Bran may be the reason that young Villas became Hodor, but the key point is that Bran did not actually change the past. He set the past on course that would become the present. The existing present time did not change. Hodor did not become Hodor just now, he's been that way all along. In this case, Bran is not changing the course of history, he's playing his part in a predetermined chain of events. Everything Bran has done in the past has already been done, and we can already feel the effects of all those actions in the present. The question is, what other things has Bran affected in the past? Were the whispers the Mad King heard that eventually caused him to go mad were actually Bran's whispers? Was it Bran himself who made the Mad King mad? Book readers as well as show viewers alike have heard many tales of the Mad King, Dany's father and Jon's grandfather, the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms before Robert Baratheon usurped the throne. Aerys was known as unstable and paranoid, convinced that those around him were conspiring. However, Aerys II was in fact not always mad. While somewhat arrogant and hot-tempered, he was also very charming and ambitious in his earlier age. When his reign started, he made the realm recover from the events at Summerhall and from the war. Aerys even proclaimed that his goal was to be called Aerys the Great or Aerys the Wise. However, Aerys then started hearing voices that eventually made him mad and paranoid. We know that the Mad King was repeatedly saying burn them all in the later stages of his life. Could it be a Hodor incident 2.0? Could it be that Bran whispered to him, send armies beyond the wall and burned all the army of the dead before it's too late, or something like that, which Aerys then kept saying repeatedly until it slurred into burn them all. As I already pointed out, the king was not always mad. Then one day something happened that got him obsessed with a particular phrase that caused him to mentally slip. What if it will be Bran who will travel back in time to warn Aerys Targaryen about the Night King and his army, only to realize it's him and his warning words that actually made Aerys mad, which resulted with the Mad King burning the Starks. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibilities that the reason why Aerys kept repeating the phrase burn them all is because Bran traveled back and tried to warn him of the approaching White Walkers. There's another theory, which is actually a theory of mine, according to which we'll see a huge twist regarding of how much influence Bran can have over the past. Given his tendency to ignore the advice of wiser people and his irresponsible use of his powers, there's a good chance that we could see Bran attempting to change the past. Let's take a look on a scene from Season 6, Episode 3. As Ned runs into the tower to find Lyanna, Bran calls out to him. Ned stops to look around, but is confused because he cannot find the source of the voice. Before Bran can discover what's in the tower for himself, the three-eyed raven brings both of them out of the past. It's very important to highlight that when Bran questioned whether or not his father heard him, the three-eyed raven did not deny the possibility of that being true. In fact, he seemed to think that it could be the case, but nevertheless he wanted Bran to leave the vision as soon as possible, whereupon he warned Bran not to interfere with the past. Maybe he knew that Bran had the power to make contact with other people in this vision and did not want Bran to accidentally change the course of history. If Ned truly did hear his future son's voice, then Bran could in fact be able to change the past, which would automatically change the present as well. In my opinion, Bran has already changed the past by calling out to his father. It may not have been a significant change, but it could still prove that he's able to do so. Let me remind you that Bran called out to his father in Episode 3 of Season 6. However, Season 6 finale proved that Bran has actually rewritten the past, as we can see that Ned now always hears Bran and turns around. So there certainly is a chance that Bran can actually change the past and in some way communicate with people from different time periods. And if true, this would be a major game change regarding the outcome of the Great War. Bran will do exactly what the three-eyed raven warned him not to do. He'll interfere with the past, and it will result with the Mad King burning down the whole capital, which will explain this Bran's vision, whether it's of the past or the future. While prophecies in Game of Thrones don't literally come true, visions on the other hand do. We know this for a fact as in the 6th episode of the 6th season, Bran received multiple visions of the past and future events, and one of his visions from the future already came true in the Season 6 finale, Bran's vision of the exploding wildfire. The remaining two visions that are yet to be seen are the shadow of a dragon flying above King's Landing, and the one in which Bran sees King's Landing in winter with an empty throne room that has its roof blown off. The question we all need to ask is, was this vision of the throne room really a vision of the future event, or rather a vision of the past event? As we can see in those visions, the throne room still has a 7-pointed star on the window above the Iron Throne. However, ever since Cersei destroyed the entire Faith Militant, there is no 7-pointed star above the Iron Throne. In case you have not noticed, shortly after the coronation of Cersei Lannister, the Great Hall changed significantly. The 7-pointed stars on the windows are replaced with the Lannister sigil, with the lion facing towards the throne, as well as a 7-pointed star above the throne itself being replaced with the sigil of House Lannister, showing Cersei's new reign. So if Bran's and Dany's vision of the throne room was a vision of a future event, the crown would have to change its ruler, and that ruler would have to bring the 7-pointed stars back and place it on the windows. Taking into account that neither Jon nor Dany are influenced by the faith of the Seven, possibility of either of them taking the throne and redecorating the windows while the army of the dead is marching south to kill them all seems very unlikely to say least. Upon rewatching the show multiple times and upon reconsidering all the hints and facts, I made a theory that Bran's and Dany's vision of the throne room is not one of the visions of the future events, but rather a vision of the past event. What I'm proposing is that the Red Keep will not get destroyed by anyone in present, but rather by Mad King and Bran in the past. If this theory of mine comes true, even though most of the current characters would still be around, it would certainly change the course of history and present. For example, Bran would still be born to Ned and Catelyn, as the Mad King already killed Ned's brother that was supposed to marry Catelyn before he burned down the capital. However, some of the main characters, like for example Jaime, would be burned alive along with the Mad King, as he was in the Red Keep as well, and this would result with some main characters that are dead to be alive in the present. One of those would be Ned Stark, since with Jaime being dead, King Joffrey would not exist in a rewritten history, and Ned Stark would not be beheaded for false treason. It would explain why Bran sees the destroyed throne room with the 7-pointed star being above the Iron Throne, even though there isn't one ever since Cersei destroyed the King Sparrow and the Faith Militant. Bran and Dany's vision of what we assume is a vision of future event would turn out to be one of the visions of the past events. This theory of mine is backed up with quite a few clues and hints, which you can check out by clicking on the link on the top right corner. One of the most important events that led to the Robert's Rebellion and execution of the Starks was said to be featured in a flashback scene in the first season. The footage of a scene appeared in the very first trailer, Fear and Blood, but has not appeared in any aired episode of the first season or any season whatsoever, or at least not yet. The scene was cut from season 1 for time restrictions, but since it's already been filmed, and since it's a flashback, we'll most likely get to see it in the final season. It would provide some key backstory to the rebellion and give a better look at the Mad King and what exactly caused him to do what he did and why. Was it the Targaryen madness or was it Bran Stark? George R. Martin said we'll learn everything about the Robert's Rebellion, what caused it, why, how, and all the important stuff that comes with it. This scene would have probably caused the confusion among the audience way back in the first season, but now that we would actually know what we are looking at, it'd be an interesting addition for the final season. I think all of us would like to see this flashback along with a few answers that would come with it. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to subscribe to our channel, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.